Well, folks, the check has been written. This past Friday, the state controller signed off on expenses from the Idaho Lieutenant Governor's office. The expenses, legal fees from the court battle that Lieutenant Governor Janice McGeachin lost to the Idaho Press Club. That entire thing was a battle over the Lieutenant Governor not releasing public records. But here it is, the official check signed by State Controller Brandon Wolf for the amount of $28,973.84. You can see the note above making it clear the money specifically for the Idaho Press Club settlement. So, taxpayer dollars from the Lieutenant Governor's budget covered the costs there. But you may be thinking, what about the $50,000 supplemental budget request that the Lieutenant Governor recently made in late August? In that request, she asked for $50,000 to, quote, pay for legal bills that cannot be covered by the Lieutenant Governor's office current budget without reducing staff hours and constituent services. And her request went on to say this, quote, if the office of the Lieutenant Governor does not receive the supplemental budget request, the office will have to devote resources from operating expenditures and personnel costs, including but not limited to possible furlough days of the only full-time employee. Office closure could reduce constituent services, said the request. Now, that $50,000 request has not been approved by the legislature, and lawmakers will actually consider the request early next year. So it could be approved, could be denied. Let's wait and see. What's also unclear, though, is why the Lieutenant Governor requested that $50,000 when the legal fees that she paid out to the Idaho Press Club, as we just told you, is only about $30,000. So the question is, what is the remaining $20,000 for? Possible cost of hiring outside legal counsel? Possibly, but at last check, the Lieutenant Governor's office says they have not received any invoices for outside legal fees. So what happens if the legislature decides next year to not approve the $50,000 supplement request? Well, it likely means that the Lieutenant Governor would be paying almost $30,000 out of her own budget for legal fees. And we're going to show you a look at the Lieutenant Governor's budget for the fiscal year we're in right now. The total budget is about $183,000, and if you subtract the Press Club settlement from that total, it means that you're taking up about 16% of the entire budget, or that 16% of the budget is taken away because you spent it on something else. Of course, that 16% was likely budgeted for specific other things, which could prove to be an issue later on down the road, as the Lieutenant Governor is just 3 months into the fiscal year, again losing a chunk of the budget to this lawsuit. So why are we in this spot now? Well, the Lieutenant Governor opted to seek legal advice from a private firm after consulting with the Idaho Attorney General's office, again, on this public records request. Now, basically, the Lieutenant Governor was told by the AG's office that she did need to release the requested public records from her education task force because there wasn't an Idaho law that allowed her to redact the information or simply not release it. The AG's office did write to the Lieutenant Governor, though, that, quote, if you disagree with our advice, you may wish to seek a second opinion from other counsel. And that's exactly what the Lieutenant Governor did. So going all the way back now to the supplemental budget request for $50,000 of note, the Idaho Joint Democratic Caucus sent out a letter last month asking the Lieutenant Governor's office to release several pieces of documentation about her request. And they asked her to include things like copies of all the legal invoices she got from her private counsel. Now, caucus members say that those documents will help them decide whether or not the supplemental request should be granted early next year. Now, a spokesperson for the Democrats tell me that the Dems have yet to receive those documents. So it will be interesting to see if and when lawmakers are provided those documents, and even more interesting to see what those documents say.